The Chicago hospital had finally begun to quiet down after one of the busiest nights of the week. The fluorescent lights in the emergency wing remained bright, but the steady rush of doctors, nurses, and patients had slowed to a tired rhythm. Emily Carter stood near the staff lounge staring at her phone. She had spent 12 hours caring for patients, answering calls, checking charts, and comforting frightened families. Normally, she could handle exhaustion without complaint. Tonight was different. Her phone displayed 3 missed calls from her younger brother. In Oregon, Emily stepped into an empty hallway and called him back. "What's happening?" Her brother's voice trembled. Mom got worse. Emily's heart dropped. "What do you mean the doctors don't think she has much time?" Emily closed her eyes. She had known her mother was sick. But she hadn't expected the situation to become this serious. "So quickly I'll come." Emily whispered, "We don't know how long she has." "I'll be there." She ended the call and immediately opened a flight app. The cheapest ticket available was hundreds of dollars, more than she had in her bank account. She tried another airline. Same problem. Emily sat down and covered her face. She had spent years working as a nurse, helping patients and their families through their hardest moments. But now, when her own family needed her, she couldn't afford to get home. A coworker found her crying Emily. Emily quickly wiped her face. "I'm fine, you don't look fine." Emily hesitated before explaining, "My mother is dying and I can't afford a ticket." Her coworker hugged her. "I'll ask around." Emily shook her head. "I can't borrow that much money." She returned to the staff lounge and stared at her phone again. She didn't notice Daniel Brooks standing near the doorway. Daniel was a single father who worked in hospital administration. He had spent the evening helping coordinate patient transfers and transportation. He had met Emily several times but barely knew her. Still, when he heard what she said, he stepped forward. "Where does your mother live?" Emily looked up Oregon. "How soon do you need to leave tonight?" Daniel nodded. "Then we'll go together." Emily stared at him. "What?" "We'll go together. You don't have to do that." I know. Daniel pulled out his phone. "I'll check the flights." Emily shook her head. "Daniel, I can't let you pay for this." He looked at her calmly. "I'm not asking you to pay me back." "But why would you do this for someone you barely know?" Daniel paused. "Because I know what it feels like to be responsible for someone you love and realize you can't control what happens next." Emily looked at him. Daniel had a 9-year-old daughter, Lily. He had learned long ago that life could change without warning. "Your mother needs you," he continued, "and you shouldn't have to spend her last hours worrying about a plane ticket." Emily's eyes filled with tears again. Daniel booked 2 seats on the next available flight. Then he sent Emily the confirmation. She stared at the screen. "You really did it." Daniel smiled. "Pack your bag." Emily stood slowly for the first time that night. She felt hope. She didn't know what the journey would bring. She only knew that when she was at her most helpless, a man she barely knew had refused to let her face the moment alone. The flight from Chicago to Oregon was quiet. Emily sat beside Daniel near the window, holding her phone tightly in both hands. Every few minutes she checked for messages from her brother. Finally, a message appeared. "She's getting weaker. Come as fast as you can." Emily's eyes filled with tears. Daniel didn't ask unnecessary questions. He simply placed a bottle of water on the tray table. "You don't have to be strong every second," he said. Emily looked at him. "I've spent my whole life taking care of people I know. I don't know how to be the person who needs help." Daniel smiled gently, "Then let someone help you." The words stayed with her for the rest of the flight. When they landed in Oregon, Daniel rented a car and drove directly to the hospital. Emily's brother met them at the entrance. "She's in her room." Emily rushed inside. Her mother was lying quietly in the hospital bed, surrounded by monitors. "Mom." Her mother's eyes slowly opened. Emily took her hand. "I'm here," her mother smiled faintly. "I knew you would come." Emily fought back tears. "I almost couldn't." Daniel and her brother remained outside, giving them privacy for the next hour. Emily sat beside her mother, telling stories from childhood and remembering family vacations. Her mother listened quietly. Then she looked toward the door. "Who brought you?" Emily glanced back at Daniel. "A friend," her mother smiled. "A good one, I hope." Emily nodded. "The best kind." Later that evening, Emily's mother passed peacefully. Emily held her hand until the very end. Daniel stayed nearby but never intruded. Afterward, Emily walked into the hallway and broke down. Daniel quietly stood beside her. She leaned against him. "Thank you." "You don't have to thank me." "Yes, I do." Daniel shook his head. "Just be there for your family." Weeks later, Emily returned to Chicago. She expected life to return to normal, but something had changed. She began spending time with Daniel outside work. They talked about their families, their struggles and their dreams. Emily learned that Daniel was raising his daughter alone after a difficult divorce. Daniel learned how deeply Emily cared for every patient she treated. Their friendship slowly became something more. One evening, Emily visited Daniel's home. His daughter, Lily, opened the door. "Are you Emily?" Emily smiled, "Yes." Lily looked at her father. "Dad talks about you," Daniel laughed. "Lily, what?" Emily laughed too. That evening, they ate dinner together. It felt surprisingly natural. Months passed, Daniel and Emily became inseparable. They supported each other through difficult days and celebrated the small victories. One night, Emily asked Daniel why he had helped her when he barely knew her. Daniel thought for a moment. "Because someday I might need someone to do the same for me." Emily smiled, "You know. That night changed my life." Daniel looked at her. "How?" "I learned that kindness doesn't always come from people who have everything." She took his hand sometimes. "It comes from someone who simply understands what it means to care." Daniel smiled years later. Emily would still tell the story of the night. She couldn't afford a plane ticket. But she never described Daniel as her hero. She called him something simpler, the person who showed up. And Daniel always reminded her that she had done the same. For countless patients, their story began with a desperate phone call, a last-minute flight, and a simple promise. "We'll go together sometimes." That is all someone needs to hear. When the world feels like it's falling apart,